Hello, family. Before we begin this amazing story, we would love for you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to get notified when we drop new stories. Now enjoy.
The sun hung low in the sky, its golden light spreading across the quiet village of Umuofia. It was the kind of evening when the world seemed to pause and catch its breath, when the winds whispered secrets through the trees and the earth felt still with anticipation. A young girl, Ngozi, sat near a small wooden house at the edge of the village. She was different from the other children in Umuofia, not just in the way she looked but in the way she carried herself. While other children ran in the streets, laughing and playing, Ngozi often found herself sitting in the shadows, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Her mother had passed away when she was just a baby, and her father, a hard-working farmer, was too busy to pay attention to her. Ngozi had learned to fend for herself. There was no one to pamper her, to tell her stories, or to make sure she was fed. Yet, there was something incredibly strong about her. Something that set her apart from others her age. On this evening, Ngozi was walking down a narrow dirt path that led to the home of a woman who lived alone at the village's farthest edge, Mama Nkechi. Mama Nkechi was an elderly woman, old enough to be everyone's grandmother. She lived in a modest mud house surrounded by overgrown gardens. The villagers spoke little of her. Some said she was too proud, others said she had been too reclusive for many years. But for some reason, Ngozi was drawn to her. She had first met Mama Nkechi a few months ago when she had wandered too far from her father's farm and got caught in a rainstorm. Cold and hungry, she had knocked on Mama Nkechi's door, asking for shelter. The old woman, who had never turned anyone away, had fed her and offered her a warm place to sleep. Since then, Ngozi had started visiting more often, carrying food from her father's farm, helping with small chores, and sitting with Mama Nkechi for hours without saying much. That evening, as she walked toward the house, she noticed Mama Nkechi sitting on a wooden stool outside, her face weathered by time but her eyes sharp as ever. The old woman looked up as Ngozi approached, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. There was something different about the smile today, like it held a secret. Ngozi stopped in front of her and placed a bundle of bananas at Mama Nkechi's feet. "I brought some from father's farm," she said, her voice soft but steady. Mama Nkechi nodded, accepting the fruit with a slow, deliberate movement. "Thank you, my child. You are kind-hearted." Ngozi shuffled her feet, uncertain what to say next. There was a growing sense in her gut that today was different, that this visit would mark a turning point. Mama Nkechi gazed at her for a long moment before speaking. "You are a good girl, Ngozi. I see that you take care of others, even when they don't ask for it. You remind me of someone I once knew." The words lingered in the air, a mixture of praise and mystery. Ngozi shifted uncomfortably, sensing the weight of the moment. "Who did I remind you of?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mama Nkechi's eyes seemed to look through her, like she was searching for something deep inside. She paused before replying, "You remind me of my daughter. She was like you, strong, independent, and full of life. But she left me a long time ago, a long, long time ago." There was a long silence between them as the shadows lengthened, and for the first time in weeks, Ngozi felt something stir inside her. A feeling she couldn't quite name, sympathy, or maybe even something deeper. "Why don't you tell me about her?" Ngozi asked, settling beside the old woman on the stool. She wanted to know more, to understand why the old woman had this bond with her, something beyond just kindness. Mama Nkechi hesitated, as though the memories were far away and difficult to reach. But after a few moments, she began to speak, her voice a soft murmur against the quiet evening. "She was everything to me, Ngozi. Everything." Mama Nkechi's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed on. "But life has a way of taking what we love. And now, all I have left are memories. I think it's time for me to share them with someone, and I feel like you are the one to hear them." As the night grew darker and the stars appeared above them, Mama Nkechi continued to share her story. Of love, loss, and the unspoken bond between mothers and daughters. Ngozi listened intently, her heart aching for the old woman she barely knew, yet who seemed to have a connection with her that couldn't be explained. When Memankechi finally fell silent, her eyes heavy with exhaustion, Ngozi placed a hand gently on her arm. "I'll come back tomorrow," Ngozi promised. "I'll come and listen. I want to hear more." Memankechi smiled again, that same secretive smile. "I'll be here, child." As Ngozi walked back to her father's house that evening, her mind swirled with questions. There was something about Memankechi's story that felt unfinished, like there was something yet to be revealed. Little did Ngozi know, this quiet promise of listening would be the beginning of a life-changing journey, one that would alter not only her life but the future of Memankechi as well. And, in a way, it would be the answer to a question that had been left hanging in the air for years. What had Memankechi been holding on to all this time? The morning came with a soft breeze that danced through the village, carrying the smell of fresh earth and the promise of a new day. Ngozi woke early, her mind still tangled in the thoughts of the previous evening. She had promised Memankechi she would return, and she intended to keep her word. After a quick breakfast, she grabbed a basket of eggs from her father's farm and made her way down the familiar dirt path, the one that led to Memankechi's house. The sun was already beginning its climb in the sky, casting long shadows as the village slowly came to life. Ngozi's footsteps were light, but there was a heaviness in her chest, a sense that today would hold something different, something significant. When she reached the old woman's house, she saw Memankechi sitting outside once again, her frail frame hunched slightly as if burdened by the weight of the years. Her eyes, however, were sharp, and when she saw Ngozi approaching, a glimmer of recognition sparked within them. "Ah, my child, you've come," Memankechi said, her voice weak but warm. She gestured for Ngozi to sit beside her. Ngozi smiled and set the basket of eggs on the ground. "I brought these from father's farm," she said, offering them with both hands. "I thought you might need them for breakfast." Memankechi accepted the eggs gratefully, nodding her thanks. "You are very kind, Ngozi. You remind me so much of my daughter," she said, her voice trailing off. She seemed lost in thought for a moment before shaking her head, as if waking from a dream. "I didn't get a chance to ask you yesterday, but why did your daughter leave?" Ngozi's curiosity had grown overnight, the question lingering in her mind like a puzzle with missing pieces. She sat beside the old woman, her eyes full of empathy. "You speak of her with such love, but also such sadness. I want to understand." Memankechi sighed deeply, the sound almost like a wind through the trees. She took a long moment before answering, her gaze distant as though searching through memories that had become clouded by time. "It was many years ago," she began, her voice soft but firm. "My daughter, Amora, was everything to me. She was bright, full of life, and everyone loved her. But one day, she met a man from another village. A stranger, you might say. At first, I didn't like him. There was something in his eyes, something I couldn't trust. But Amora was in love, and when a young woman is in love, she doesn't always listen to the warnings of the world." Ngozi listened closely, her heart heavy with each word. She could see the pain in the old woman's face, the way her hands trembled as she spoke of Amora. "They left one night, without telling anyone," Memankechi continued, her voice breaking slightly. "They went far, far away. And that was the last I saw of her. I searched for years, asking people, asking strangers. But I never found her again. I don't know what happened to her, where she went, or if she's even alive." A long silence passed between them, the only sound the gentle rustling of leaves in the wind. Ngozi could feel the weight of Memankechi's words, the pain of a mother who had lost her child without knowing why or how. It was the kind of pain that settled deep inside, gnawing at the soul, refusing to let go. "I'm so sorry," Ngozi said quietly, her voice full of empathy. She reached out and took the old woman's hand in hers. "I can't imagine what that must have been like for you." Memankechi squeezed her hand lightly, a sad smile forming on her lips. "Thank you, my child. You are a comfort to me. But sometimes, when I look at you, I see Amora. The same spirit, the same kindness. There was something in Mama Nkechi's eyes then, something almost secretive, as if she was holding back a truth she wasn't quite ready to share. Ngozi noticed it, and for the first time, she felt a shiver of something unspoken hanging in the air. I think, Mama Nkechi said after a pause, that the world has a way of bringing certain people together. I've watched you, Ngozi, and I've seen the kindness in you. The same kindness that Amora had. I think she would have liked you. Ngozi felt a pang in her chest at the mention of Amora's name. She couldn't explain why, but something about it felt like a thread weaving them all together, like fate had a hand in this meeting. But why do you tell me this now? Ngozi asked, her voice soft, but laced with curiosity. What does it mean? I don't understand. Mama Nkechi's eyes seemed to soften as she looked at the young girl beside her. I will tell you in time, Ngozi, she said. But there's something else I must tell you first. Something important. Something that will change everything for you. Ngozi leaned in, her heart pounding now. Whatever Mama Nkechi was about to say, she could feel it in her bones. It would be something that would shift her world, just as the old woman's presence had already begun to do. Mama Nkechi's voice grew quieter, almost as if she was speaking a secret meant only for Ngozi's ears. I've lived a long life, Ngozi, and soon, I will leave this world. But before I do, I want to give you something. I want you to promise me something. Ngozi's heart raced. What is it, Mama Nkechi? I'll do anything. The old woman's gaze hardened slightly, as though she was making a final decision. You must promise me that you will never forget the love you have in your heart. That no matter what happens, you will hold on to it and share it with the world. Promise me, child. I promise, Ngozi said, her voice steady, though her heart was beating faster now. She didn't fully understand what Mama Nkechi meant, but something deep inside her told her this promise would mean everything. Mama Nkechi's eyes softened, and she smiled that secretive smile once again. Good. Because one day, you will understand. And when that day comes, you will know exactly what to do. As the day drew to a close and the sun dipped lower in the sky, Ngozi left Mama Nkechi's house with a strange sense of anticipation in her chest. She didn't know what the old woman meant, but she knew she was on the edge of something big. Something that would change everything. Little did she know, the answer would come sooner than she thought. The days that followed felt heavier than usual. Ngozi couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to unfold, something beyond the simple exchanges she had shared with Mama Nkechi over the past few months. Each time she returned to the old woman's house, she couldn't help but look for clues, for answers hidden in the wrinkles of Mama Nkechi's face or the quiet way she spoke. There was a mystery growing between them, one that Ngozi could feel but not yet understand. One morning, as Ngozi was walking towards Mama Nkechi's house, a cold breeze swept through the village, carrying with it a sense of change. She didn't know why, but today felt different. The sky was clouded over, as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. She quickened her pace, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and unease. When she arrived, she found Mama Nkechi sitting outside as usual, but there was something unsettling in her stillness. The old woman's frail hands rested on her lap, and her gaze was distant, lost somewhere far away. Mama Nkechi? Ngozi called gently, stepping closer. Are you all right? The old woman's eyes slowly shifted towards her, and for a moment, Ngozi saw a flicker of something she had never seen before, fear. It was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by the usual calm, but it unsettled her. I'm fine, my child, Mama Nkechi said, her voice weak but steady. But I've been thinking, there's something I must tell you. Something I should have said before. Ngozi sat beside her, her heart beating faster. She could sense that the time for the old woman's secrets was drawing near. She needed to hear this, needed to understand what Mama Nkechi had been trying to say all along. What is it, Mama Nkechi? What is it you've been holding on to? Mama Nkechi paused, her gaze drifting to the horizon as if gathering strength from the earth beneath her. You've heard my story about Amora, haven't you? Ngozi nodded, eager for answers. Yes. You told me she left with a man, and you never saw her again. But, why do you keep talking about her? I feel like there's more to it. I feel like you want me to know something. The old woman's eyes darkened, and for the first time, Ngozi noticed a hint of regret in her expression. Amora didn't leave just because she was in love, my child. No. There was more to it. There was a reason she ran away. A reason that has haunted me all these years. Ngozi leaned in closer, her breath catching in her throat. What reason, Mama Nkechi? What happened? Mama Nkechi took a long, shaky breath, and then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she reached into the folds of her worn wrapper and pulled out a small, leather-bound book. It was old, the pages yellowed with age, and the cover was frayed, as if it had been handled too many times. This is Amora's journal, Mama Nkechi said, her voice barely above a whisper. I kept it after she left. I didn't want to lose any part of her. I thought, perhaps, one day, I could find her. But now, I realize it's not about finding her anymore. It's about understanding why she left. Understanding what happened. With trembling hands, she opened the journal to a page near the back, where the ink had started to fade, and handed it to Ngozi. I want you to read this, Mama Nkechi said, her voice urgent. Because I think you might be the only one who can understand. Ngozi took the journal carefully, feeling the weight of the old woman's words. She opened the page, her eyes scanning the delicate script. I am not who I was before. I've been hiding from something for too long, and now I can't escape it. The man I'm with isn't who he seems to be. He's part of something darker, something I can't explain. I'm afraid for my life, for my mother's life, for everyone around me. I don't know who to trust anymore. I've made a decision. I'll run. I'll go far away, where no one can find me. I don't know if I'll ever be back. But it's the only way to survive. Ngozi's eyes widened as she read the words, each sentence like a weight pressing down on her chest. She looked up at Mama Nkechi, her voice barely a whisper. What does this mean, Mama Nkechi? Who was Amora running from? What was she hiding? Mama Nkechi closed her eyes, her face full of sorrow. She was running from a man. A man who was part of a group in the village. A group that was involved in things that no one should know about. But she didn't tell me everything, Ngozi. She couldn't. She was too scared. Ngozi's mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to click together. But why didn't you go after her? Why didn't you try to find her? I tried, Mama Nkechi said, her voice breaking. I searched for years. But every time I got close, I felt a darkness closing in around me. I couldn't protect her, Ngozi. I couldn't protect her from the very thing that was pulling her away. And I couldn't protect myself either. I had to let her go. But I never stopped looking for her, never stopped hoping she would come back. There was a long silence as the weight of the revelation hung heavy in the air. Ngozi couldn't understand it all, but she felt something deep inside, a pull to this story, a connection that went beyond the surface. There was a reason she had crossed paths with Mama Nkechi, a reason she had become part of this woman's life. What should I do with this, Mama Nkechi? Ngozi asked, holding the journal tightly in her hands. Keep it, Mama Nkechi said, her voice steady despite the emotions that were clearly racking her body. Keep it, and when the time is right, you will understand. There's more to this story, but it's not for me to tell. It's for you. You are the one who will make things right. You are the one who will find the truth. Ngozi nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know how or when, but she knew now that her life was entwined with this secret, this mystery. The path ahead wasn't clear, but she could no longer walk away. Not now. As the evening drew near and the first stars appeared in the sky, Mama Nkechi's voice softened once more. Thank you, Ngozi. You are the daughter I never had. You are the one who will carry on the legacy of love and courage. Never forget that. Ngozi stood up slowly, the weight of the journal in her hands, and made a silent promise to the old woman. She would find the truth. She would uncover the secrets of the past, no matter where it led her. Little did she know, the truth was closer than she thought. The days after that conversation felt heavy, like the air in the village had thickened with unspoken truths. Ngozi found herself restless, constantly returning to the old woman's words, to the journal now tucked carefully in her room. It was a secret, but it wasn't just any secret, it was a key. A key to something far bigger than she could have imagined. She continued visiting Maman Ketchi, though the old woman's health seemed to deteriorate with each passing day. The once steady glow in her eyes was now clouded with fatigue. But each time Ngozi sat by her side, the old woman would hold her hand, her grip stronger than her frail body suggested. There was an unspoken bond between them now, something that had grown deeper than just shared stories and quiet afternoons. It was as if Maman Ketchi was preparing Ngozi for something she wasn't yet ready to understand, something that only time could reveal. One afternoon, as the sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm orange light across the village, Ngozi found herself walking to Maman Ketchi's house once more. She was holding the journal in her hand, the leather worn and the pages crinkled from the times she had pored over them. There were still so many questions, so many things she needed to know. When she arrived, Maman Ketchi wasn't sitting outside as usual. The door to her house was open, but the old woman wasn't there. Panic surged through Ngozi's chest, and for a brief moment, her mind raced with all the worst possibilities. She pushed the door open gently, calling out softly, "Maman Ketchi?" She stepped inside, her heart pounding. The small room was dim, the smell of dried herbs and old wood filling the air. Maman Ketchi's bed was untouched, and the house felt eerily still. "Maman Ketchi?" Ngozi called again, her voice shaking. But there was no answer. As she turned to leave, a small noise caught her attention, a faint creak from the corner of the room. She spun around, her breath catching in her throat. There, sitting by the window, was Maman Ketchi. She was hunched over, her face pale, but her eyes were wide open, fixed on the journal in her lap. For a moment, Ngozi froze, unsure whether to approach. The sight of Maman Ketchi like this, so still and silent, was unlike anything she had seen before. It felt as though the air itself had shifted, thick with anticipation. "Maman Ketchi," she whispered, taking a cautious step forward. "What is it?" The old woman's voice cracked as she looked up at her. "Ngozi, my child, I can feel it now. Time is closing in. I'm too weak, too old to do what must be done. But you." She stopped suddenly, her hands trembling as they clutched the journal. "You must understand the truth, child. You must know why Amora left and what it all means. You're the only one who can make it right." Ngozi stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "What do you mean, Maman Ketchi? What happened to Amora? What is this all leading to?" The old woman closed her eyes for a moment, as if summoning the strength to continue. "I knew she was in danger, Ngozi, but I didn't know how deep it went. The man she left with, he was no stranger. He wasn't just from another village. He was part of a powerful group, a secret society that operates in the shadows of this village. They manipulate, control, and sometimes destroy those who get too close. I should have protected her, but I couldn't." Ngozi's mind spun, her breath quickening. "What secret society? Why didn't you tell anyone about this? Why didn't you try to stop them?" Maman Ketchi's gaze was distant now, her voice hollow. "Because they were everywhere. They had eyes on everyone. Even me. I couldn't protect her from them, and I couldn't protect myself either. Amora thought running away was the only way to keep herself safe. But she never truly escaped. They always find their way back." Her words hung in the air like a storm on the horizon. Ngozi's heart pounded, her thoughts racing. This was bigger than anything she had ever imagined. There was danger in their midst, danger that had been hiding in plain sight. "The journal, Ngozi," Maman Ketchi's voice broke through her racing thoughts. "It holds the answers, the key to stopping them. But it's incomplete. You must find the missing pieces. The truth is hidden in the stories, in the people Amora met, and in the decisions she made. You will need to piece it all together. But you have to be careful. There are forces at work, and they will stop at nothing to keep their secrets. Ngozi nodded, her mind still reeling. I don't understand, Mama Nkechi. How do I find the missing pieces? How do I stop them? Mama Nkechi's eyes softened with a mix of sorrow and pride. You have to follow the clues, child. Trust in what you know, in your heart. Amora left me a trail, a way for me or someone to understand what happened. I couldn't do it. But you can. You must. Tears welled in Ngozi's eyes as she looked at the frail old woman, whose strength seemed to be waning by the second. Mama Nkechi, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can handle it. The old woman smiled faintly, her frail hand reaching out to touch Ngozi's cheek. You are ready, my child. You always have been. Don't doubt yourself. The courage you have in you will lead the way. Before Ngozi could say another word, Mama Nkechi's breathing grew heavier, slower. The journal slipped from her lap, falling to the ground with a soft thud. Her eyes closed gently, and her head tipped to one side, as though the weight of her words had finally taken their toll. Ngozi knelt beside her, her heart breaking as she realized what had just happened. Mama Nkechi, the woman who had taken her in when no one else had, the woman who had shared her deepest secrets, was gone. Tears streamed down Ngozi's face as she held the old woman's hand, promising silently that she would fulfill the promise Mama Nkechi had made her swear to. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. With the journal clutched tightly in her hands, Ngozi stood up slowly, wiping the tears from her eyes. The sun was beginning to set outside, the sky darkening with the shadows of the evening. But within her, a new light had ignited a determination to uncover the truth, to stop the shadowy force that had haunted Mama Nkechi, and to honor the memory of the woman who had trusted her with this dangerous secret. And so, her journey began. The mystery was now hers to solve. The days following Mama Nkechi's death were quiet but filled with a heavy stillness that hung over the village. The news of the old woman's passing spread quickly, and though many in the village mourned her, no one truly understood the burden she had carried for so many years. No one knew the secrets she had hidden away, secrets that now rested in the fragile journal clutched tightly in Ngozi's hands. She spent the first few nights alone, poring over the journal, hoping to find something that would make sense of the tangled web of words and memories. But the pages were cryptic, full of references to people and places she didn't recognize, names that seemed foreign. Yet there was a thread that ran through them all, something dark and unsettling that made her skin prickle every time she read it. Amora had left behind clues, pieces of a puzzle that Ngozi now had to solve. But the more she read, the more she realized just how much danger was hidden in those pages. The words spoke of a shadowy figure, someone who had been pulling the strings in the background, someone with the power to manipulate the lives of everyone around him. This wasn't just about Amora, it was about something much bigger, a force that reached deep into the heart of their village. As the sun began to dip below the horizon on the 5th day after Mama Nkechi's death, Ngozi found herself standing at the edge of the village, the journal open in her hands. The air was thick with the promise of rain, and the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a sense of urgency. She had spent hours searching for answers, but something was missing. A place. A name. A face. She turned the page, her fingers tracing the faded ink, until she came across something that made her heart skip a beat. There's a man. A man with the name Namdi. He is the one I fear most. I don't know where he's from, but I've seen the mark on his arm. It's a symbol of the group, the one that controls everything here. He's dangerous. He's always watching. He's the reason I had to leave. He'll stop at nothing to keep his secrets hidden. He's the one who will find me if I stay too long. Namdi. The name struck a chord in Ngozi's chest. She had heard it before, whispers in the market, hushed conversations among the elders, even the occasional mention in passing. But no one ever spoke of him openly. It was as if saying his name aloud might bring his gaze down upon you. She closed the journal, her mind racing. Namdi wasn't just some stranger, he was someone connected to the very heart of the darkness that had plagued Memankechi, and now, it seemed, he was connected to her own fate. Without thinking, she tucked the journal into her bag and made her way to the heart of the village. The tension in the air seemed to increase with each step, the oppressive weight of the storm pressing down on her shoulders. She needed answers, but she couldn't do this alone. She needed someone who understood the dangers, someone who might be able to help her make sense of it all. Ngozi found herself walking toward the home of Ugakyu, a childhood friend of her late mother. Ugakyu was a quiet man, known for his wisdom and knowledge of the village's history. He was older now, but still a figure of respect among the people. If anyone knew anything about Namdi, it would be him. When she reached his home, the air was thick with the scent of wood smoke and the sound of distant thunder. Ngozi knocked softly on the door, her heart racing. She wasn't sure if Ugakyu would be able to help, but she had to try. The door creaked open, and Ugakyu appeared, his face lined with years of experience and understanding. His eyes narrowed slightly when he saw her, as though he had been expecting her visit for some time. "Ngozi," he said, his voice steady but tinged with concern. "I was wondering when you would come." She didn't know how to respond to that. "I need your help," she said simply, her voice steady despite the rising fear in her chest. "I need to know about a man named Namdi. I think he's connected to what happened to Memankechi, to Amora, to everything." Ugakyu didn't immediately reply. He studied her carefully, as if weighing her words, before finally stepping aside to let her in. She entered the small, dimly lit room, the air cool against her skin. The walls were lined with shelves filled with books, scrolls, and old artifacts, remnants of a time long past. "Sit, Ngozi," Ugakyu said, motioning toward the mat on the floor. He took a seat opposite her, folding his legs beneath him. "Tell me what you know." She pulled out the journal, laying it in front of him. "This is Memankechi's. She gave it to me before she passed. I've been reading it, and I think there's something in here about Namdi. Something important." Ugakyu picked up the journal, his fingers tracing the edges carefully. He didn't look surprised, but there was a deep sadness in his eyes as he flipped through the pages. "I knew this day would come," he murmured, more to himself than to Ngozi. "I hoped it wouldn't, but I knew." He set the journal down between them and looked at Ngozi with a grave expression. "Namdi is not just any man. He is a leader within a secret society that has existed for generations. They are the ones who control the village from the shadows, pulling the strings, making sure the status quo remains intact. They don't want change, Ngozi. They don't want the truth to be revealed. Why hasn't anyone done anything about it?" Ngozi's voice was sharp, filled with frustration. "Why haven't the elders stopped them? Why didn't Memankechi tell anyone?" Ugakyu's face hardened. "Because they have power. Power that reaches far beyond what anyone can see. Namdi is dangerous, and the people in that society are just as dangerous. No one dares to challenge them, for fear of the consequences. They have eyes everywhere." Ngozi felt the weight of his words settle over her like a heavy cloak. "Then what am I supposed to do? What can I do?" Ugakyu met her gaze, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and respect. "You must be careful. The truth is dangerous. But if you want to stop them, if you want to uncover what happened to Amora and Memankechi, you'll have to go further. Find the missing pieces. Uncover their secrets. But remember, Ngozi, once you begin, there is no turning back. They will come after you. And they won't stop until you're silenced." The storm outside began to pick up, the sound of thunder echoing through the small room. For the first time in her life, Ngozi felt the full weight of what she had gotten herself into. But there was no turning back now. She nodded slowly, the determination in her heart growing stronger. "I'll do whatever it takes, Ugakyu. I have to know the truth." He gave her a long, hard look, before finally nodding in return. "Then be prepared, Ngozi. The journey ahead will not be easy. And so, with the journal clutched in her hands and the storm raging outside, Ngozi knew one thing for certain: she was no longer just a girl from the village. She was a part of something much bigger, something that would change her life, and the fate of everyone around her, forever. The storm raged on that night, but within the walls of Yugaku's humble home, there was an eerie silence that seemed to press in on Ngozi. She had listened intently to his words, but now that the gravity of her situation had fully settled in, the weight was unbearable. She wasn't sure if it was fear, the overwhelming sense of responsibility, or something deeper, but she couldn't shake the unease that gnawed at her. Yugaku had given her some advice, but there was so much more he hadn't said. The truth was so much more complex than anyone had anticipated. She was a girl alone, standing at the edge of a much larger world, one she hadn't known existed until Maman Kechi had opened her eyes to it. And now, with her mentor gone, Ngozi was left holding the key to a puzzle that threatened to unravel everything she had ever known. The next morning, as the first light of dawn filtered through the cracks in the window, Ngozi sat on the floor, surrounded by piles of papers, the journal, and the fragments of stories that had been passed down by Maman Kechi. She had spent the entire night reading, trying to make sense of the pieces of a life she had never fully understood. The names, the references to people long forgotten, the places she didn't recognize, they were all clues, but there was one that stood out the most. The name Yugaku had appeared in the journal, but not in a way that she expected. Maman Kechi had written about a time when the two had worked together, decades ago, to uncover a similar plot. But the details were vague. All she knew was that it was a part of the village's history, a time when the people had united against a common enemy, a time when Yugaku had been at the heart of the struggle. Ngozi stared at the page for a long time. Yugaku had been part of something much bigger than he had ever let on. He had known about the society all along. He had known more than he was willing to say. With this new knowledge in her mind, she stood up and decided it was time to confront him. She needed answers that could help her understand the mystery, and more importantly, help her understand why the village seemed so complicit in all of it. She had to know who else knew about Namdi and his group. As she walked out into the fresh morning air, she noticed the village was quieter than usual. The normal bustle of children playing and people going about their business was replaced with a heavy, almost oppressive stillness. It felt as though the whole village was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Ngozi reached Yugaku's house once again, but this time, there was no welcoming sign. The door was shut, and there was no smoke rising from the chimney. Her heart skipped a beat. Had something happened to him? She knocked on the door with urgency, but there was no answer. She tried again, this time calling out, "Yugaku, it's me, Ngozi. Please, I need to talk to you." After a long moment, the door creaked open. But it wasn't Yugaku who stood in the doorway. It was a woman she had never seen before, a tall, thin figure with piercing eyes that seemed to see straight through her. "Yes," the woman asked, her voice cold. I'm looking for Yugaku," Ngozi said, her voice trembling slightly. "I need to speak with him. It's important." The woman regarded her for a moment, her expression unreadable, then stepped aside, silently motioning for Ngozi to enter. The inside of the house was different than before, darker, quieter, and somehow more oppressive. There were no bookshelves, no artifacts scattered around the room. Instead, the walls were bare, the furniture sparse. Something about the atmosphere felt off, as though the place was no longer a home but a shell. Ngozi stepped cautiously inside, her gaze darting around the room. She could feel the woman's eyes following her every movement, calculating. "Where is Yugaku?" Ngozi asked again, her heart pounding in her chest. The woman's lips curled into a slight smile, but there was no warmth in it. "You won't find him here," she said softly. "He's gone. Gone to take care of some unfinished business." The words hit Ngozi like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean, gone? Where did he go? Why didn't he tell me?" The woman's smile faded as she walked toward the door, her movements slow, deliberate. "You should have known better than to trust him, child. He's been a part of this village's secret for a long time, longer than even you realize. Ngozi's mind spun. What do you mean? What are you saying about him? Is he involved in what happened to Maman Kechi? The woman's eyes darkened. Ugaku isn't just some quiet old man. He was once one of their leaders. One of the very people who helped the society rise to power in the first place. He was a part of the plan, just like Namdi. The words sent a shock through Ngozi's entire body. She couldn't process them. She refused to believe them. The man who had been her guide, who had shared stories with her, who had promised to help, he had been a part of the very thing she was fighting against. No, Ngozi whispered, shaking her head, trying to make sense of the woman's words. That can't be true. He's always helped me, he helped Maman Kechi. The woman's expression softened for the briefest moment, though her eyes still held an unsettling coldness. People change, child. Or maybe they just reveal who they truly are when the time is right. She turned toward the door, opening it slightly, as if signaling that the conversation was over. You'll learn soon enough. The truth always finds a way to surface. But be warned, Ngozi, the more you seek, the more you will uncover. And there is a cost to knowing too much. Ngozi stood frozen, her mind racing, trying to piece together what had just been said. Ugaku, her trusted ally, had been part of the very force she was now fighting. He had known about Namdi, known about the secret society, and had played a role in its power. But why had he helped her? Why had he helped Maman Kechi? Was it all just a game to him? As she turned to leave, the woman's voice stopped her. Don't say I didn't warn you. The truth comes with a price, and the people who seek it often don't come back the same. Be careful, Ngozi. Very careful. Ngozi stepped back into the light of day, her heart heavy with betrayal, her mind swimming in confusion. She had come looking for answers, but now she had more questions than ever. Ugaku was gone. And the battle she thought she was prepared for had just become far more dangerous than she had imagined. She could no longer trust the people she had once thought she could rely on. The secrets of the village were deeper than she ever could have guessed, and now it was up to her to uncover them, no matter the cost. Ngozi walked out of Ugaku's house, her mind a whirl of questions and emotions. The morning sunlight felt harsh, as if it couldn't offer the comfort it usually did. The village felt alien now, the familiar paths she once walked so effortlessly now seemed unfamiliar, as though they were lined with hidden dangers, waiting to trap her. Her thoughts circled back to the woman in Ugaku's house. What was she really saying? Ugaku had helped her, he had given her the journal, shared his knowledge, and even warned her about the society. How could he have been a part of it? She couldn't reconcile the man she had known with the cold, calculating figure the woman had described. Was it possible that Ugaku had played both sides all along? She shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. There was no time to dwell on what ifs. She had to keep moving forward. If Ugaku had truly been part of the secret society, then that meant the threat was far more dangerous than she had realized. Namdi and his followers were not just mysterious figures in the shadows, they were people in positions of power, with connections that ran deep, their influence hidden beneath a veil of silence. And she, Ngozi, was in their way. She knew she couldn't stop now. She had to get to the heart of this. She had to learn what Ugaku had known, what Maman Kechi had known. She had to uncover the truth about Namdi and his group, no matter the cost. As she walked back toward her house, her footsteps quickening, she began to think of her next move. She needed more information, more people to trust. But who could she turn to now? The elders. They were all bound by tradition and fear. The villagers. Many of them were too afraid to speak out, too willing to go along with the quiet control that Namdi and the society wielded. But then, it hit her. There was one person who might still know something, someone who had always been by her side, someone who had lived through the history of the village, someone who had seen the quiet shifts of power, the way things had always been. Ngozi made her way to the edge of the village, to the small, run-down house that belonged to her aunt, Nina. Nina had lived here for as long as Ngozi could remember. She was older than her mother had been, and though the lines on her face spoke of many years lived in hardship, there was wisdom in her eyes. Nina had always been a silent observer of village politics, the kind of person who listened more than she spoke. She had always seemed to know things without ever revealing them. Ngozi knocked gently on the wooden door. It creaked open almost immediately, and Nina's familiar face appeared in the doorway, her eyes sharp despite her years. "Ngozi, child," Nina greeted her, a soft smile forming on her lips. "You've come at just the right time." Ngozi felt a shiver run through her as the door swung wider, allowing her to enter. "Aunt Nina, I need to talk to you. There's something I need to know." Nina motioned for her to sit, and as Ngozi lowered herself onto the low bench, she could see the concern in her aunt's eyes. "What is it, my child? You look troubled." Ngozi hesitated, her fingers gripping the hem of her dress. "I don't know where to start," she began. "But, it's about Ugakyu. It's about everything. I think I've uncovered something that could change everything." Nina sat down opposite her, folding her hands on her lap. "Tell me," she said quietly, her voice steady. So, with Nina's patient presence beside her, Ngozi told her everything about Maman Ketch's death, the journal, the secrets hidden within it, Ugakyu's role in the society, and the cryptic words that had led her to this point. She didn't hold back, sharing every detail she had uncovered. Nina listened intently, her face unreadable as Ngozi spoke. When she finished, a long silence stretched between them. Ngozi waited anxiously for her aunt's response, but Nina said nothing at first. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke. "You've uncovered much, child. More than I had hoped you would." Ngozi frowned, a knot tightening in her chest. "Aunt Nina, you knew?" Nina nodded slowly. "I knew more than I ever told you. The village has always had its secrets, but there are some things you never want to uncover. Things that could break the very fabric of this community. Then why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you warn me?" Ngozi's voice cracked with frustration. Nina sighed deeply, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Because some truths, my dear, are too dangerous to speak. The society that controls this village is old, and it runs deep. To challenge it is to risk everything. People have tried, and many have disappeared, without a trace. Ugakyu may have helped you, but you don't understand he's been part of this for a very long time. He's not a man of pure intentions." Ngozi felt a cold chill creep over her skin. "But why would he help me if he's part of it? Why would he help Maman Ketchi?" Nina's expression darkened. "Because, sometimes, the strongest among us are the ones who are closest to the edge. Ugakyu is torn, child. He may have been part of their world, but deep down, he has always known the cost of their power. He helped you because he saw the good in you. Maman Ketchi, she was one of the few who resisted. She fought against the shadows in her own way. But Ugakyu never left. He's always been torn between his loyalty to the society and his desire to do what's right." Ngozi felt as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. She had assumed Ugakyu was an ally, but now, it seemed that the line between ally and enemy was much thinner than she had ever imagined. "Then what do I do now?" she asked, her voice small, uncertain. "How can I stop them? How can I stop Namdi?" Nina stood and walked to the small window, looking out at the village below. "You must be careful, Ngozi. To fight them is to fight everything this village has ever known. But you must find the truth, and in the truth lies your power." Ngozi felt a quiet resolve settle in her chest. She didn't know how or when it would happen, but she knew one thing for certain: she would uncover the truth. She would expose the darkness hiding in her village, no matter the consequences. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the earth, Ngozi felt the weight of her journey ahead. The path was dangerous, and there would be sacrifices. But she had already lost so much. Now, she had nothing left to lose but the truth. And she would fight for it, even if it meant walking alone. The days that followed felt like a blur to Ngozi. Each one passed with the weight of uncertainty pressing harder on her shoulders. She had learned so much in such a short time, but the pieces of the puzzle didn't fit together. It was as if she were standing in the middle of a dark room, feeling her way around, but never quite reaching the light switch. Her conversations with Nina had become more frequent, but even her aunt's wisdom couldn't completely ease the burden on her heart. The quiet village she had known all her life seemed to be closing in around her, its gentle rhythms disrupted by shadows that seemed to grow deeper with each passing day. Ngozi spent long hours poring over the journal, trying to make sense of its cryptic entries. There was one entry, in particular, that haunted her. It spoke of a final trial, a test that had been set into motion long before she was born, designed to either break or strengthen those who dared to challenge the society. The words were vague, but they felt ominous. Was this trial meant for her? And if so, what kind of test was it? But despite her confusion, there was something inside her, a quiet determination that refused to let go. She had come too far to turn back now. She had to uncover the truth, for herself, for Mama Nkechi, and for the village that had been kept in the dark for so long. One evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange, Ngozi found herself walking down the familiar dirt road that led to the edge of the village. She had come to the decision that it was time to speak with Nnamdi. The very idea of confronting him filled her with dread, but it was the only way forward. He was the leader of the society, and if she was going to have any hope of unraveling its web of secrets, she had to go to the heart of it. As she reached the outskirts of the village, Ngozi noticed a figure standing by the tree where she had often seen the elders gather. Nnamdi stood there, his tall frame outlined against the fading light. His presence was commanding, and even from a distance, she could feel the weight of his authority. Taking a deep breath, Ngozi walked toward him, her steps steady but her heart racing. She wasn't sure what she expected, whether he would be welcoming or cold, hostile or understanding. But she knew she couldn't back down now. When Nnamdi saw her approaching, a smile tugged at the corners of his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. His gaze was piercing, almost too knowing, as if he had been expecting her. "Ah, Ngozi," he said, his voice smooth and unhurried. "I've been wondering when you would come." Ngozi stopped a few paces from him, feeling the tension in the air. "I need answers, Nnamdi," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "I need to know what's really going on in this village. Who is behind everything? And why?" Nnamdi's smile deepened, but there was a hint of something darker behind it. "You've been asking the right questions, but not to the right people," he said, his voice laced with an unsettling calm. "There are things in this world, Ngozi, things that cannot be understood by just looking at them. You have to feel them, breathe them in. Only then will you understand." Her frustration bubbled to the surface. "I don't need riddles, Nnamdi. I need the truth. I need to know what happened to Mama Nkechi." The mention of Mama Nkechi's name caused a brief flicker of something in his eyes, something almost imperceptible, before his expression returned to its usual cool demeanor. Mama Nkechi was a part of this village's history, just like everyone else, Nnamdi said, his words slow and deliberate. "She played her part in the story, and now, it's your turn." "My turn?" Ngozi repeated, confused. "What do you mean by that?" Nnamdi took a step closer to her, and for the first time, she felt the full weight of his presence. There was something unsettling about his calmness, like a predator toying with its prey. "You're searching for something that has already been set in motion, Ngozi," he said softly. "This village, the society, it's been here long before you and I. And it will remain long after we're gone. Your quest for answers, your desire to expose the truth, it's all part of a larger plan. One that has been written long ago." Ngozi felt a chill run through her. She was no longer sure if this conversation was just a game to him or if he was revealing something far more dangerous. "You don't control this village," she said, trying to steady her voice. "And you don't control me. I'm not afraid of you." Nnamdi tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "No," he agreed, his voice soft. "You're not afraid. But you will be. You will be, when you understand what this all means. You will be, when you understand that the very people you trust are the ones who will betray you." Her heart skipped a beat. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her voice breaking. Namdi took another step toward her, his eyes never leaving hers. "The truth, Ngozi, is that everything you've known is a lie. Every word you've been told is part of the illusion. The society controls everything here, everything you see, everything you hear. And soon, you will be forced to choose, to accept the truth and become one of us, or to fight against it and be crushed by it." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Ngozi stood there, frozen, trying to process the enormity of what he was saying. Could it be true? Was the entire village, every person she had known, really a part of this dark society? Namdi gave her one last look, his gaze heavy and filled with an unsettling certainty. "You'll see soon enough, Ngozi," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The truth always comes for those who seek it. But when it does, be ready. You won't like what you find." With that, he turned and walked away, his figure fading into the shadows of the trees. Ngozi stood there, her mind racing. The world she had known, the village she had loved, was changing before her eyes. And as much as she hated it, as much as she wanted to turn away, she knew she couldn't. She was too deep now. There was no going back. She had to find the truth, no matter the cost. The night was darker than usual, as if the heavens themselves were holding their breath. Ngozi sat on the edge of her bed, the weight of Namdi's words still pressing heavily on her chest. His warning echoed in her mind, over and over again. "You'll see soon enough, Ngozi. The truth always comes for those who seek it." She had been searching for answers, but now, it felt as though the very ground beneath her was shifting. The stillness of the night was only interrupted by the occasional chirp of crickets outside. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching her. As though her every move was being tracked. The thought made her skin crawl. The village felt too quiet now. The bustling paths, the chatter from the market, the laughter of children playing, all of it seemed distant, as if the world around her was pulling away into a dark void. Her mind kept returning to one question: what was the society really after? She had believed it was just about power, control over the villagers, a way for them to rule in the shadows. But Namdi's words made her wonder if it was more than that. Was there something bigger at play? Something far more sinister than she had ever imagined? Ngozi knew she had to find out. She had to uncover the truth before it was too late. The next morning, she made her way to the village square, where the old well stood. It had been a meeting place for generations, a place where people gathered to chat, share news, or just rest. Ngozi had often found solace there when she was younger, but today, it felt different. The usual buzz of voices was gone, replaced by an uneasy silence. She spotted Nina sitting under the shade of a large tree by the well. The old woman's presence always seemed calming, a quiet force in the midst of the chaos. Ngozi approached her, her steps hesitant. Nina looked up, her sharp eyes studying her, as if she already knew what was weighing on her mind. "Nina," Ngozi said, her voice tight. "I need to talk to you." Nina motioned for her to sit, her expression unreadable. "I know what's troubling you, child. You've been asking the wrong questions." Ngozi sat down beside her, her heart pounding. "What do you mean? I have to know the truth. I have to understand what's really going on." Nina's eyes softened for a moment, but there was a heaviness in her gaze. "The truth is a dangerous thing, Ngozi. Some truths should remain buried. But I can see that you won't stop, will you?" "No," Ngozi replied, her voice firm. "I can't stop now. Not when everything is falling apart. Not when I know that the village I've known isn't what I thought it was." Nina sighed deeply, her weathered hands folding in her lap. "It's not just the village, child. It's the very foundation of our lives here. Everything has been controlled, manipulated by forces that have been at work for generations. The society, as you've learned, isn't just about power. It's about legacy. A cycle that's been repeating itself for centuries." Ngozi's heart skipped. "A cycle," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Nina nodded. Yes. The society, this group that Namdi leads, they believe in the preservation of order. In their eyes, the world cannot move forward unless certain things remain as they are. They control the land, the resources, the knowledge. They make sure that no one rises above the others. They keep everything in balance. But why? Why keep it all hidden? Why not just let everyone know? Because power is like fire, Nina explained, her voice low and heavy with the weight of years of silence. If you let it spread too far, it will consume everything in its path. They keep it hidden so that they can control it. So that no one can challenge it. Ngozi stared at her, trying to grasp the enormity of what she was hearing. So, all this time, the way things have been, the way the village works, it's all part of their plan? Yes, Nina said softly. And you, Ngozi, are caught in the middle of it. Mama Nkechi knew this. She tried to resist, but she couldn't break free. You've come close, but you haven't seen the full picture yet. Ngozi's mind raced. What do I need to see? Nina's gaze hardened. You need to see what they want from you. What this whole thing has been building toward. You've been chosen, Ngozi, whether you realize it or not. Chosen? Ngozi repeated, her breath catching in her throat. For what? For the final test, Nina said. The trial that will determine whether the village stays as it is or whether everything changes. A shiver ran down Ngozi's spine. The final test. Nina's voice lowered to a whisper. It's not just about revealing the truth. It's about your role in it all. The society has chosen you to be a part of their future. You're the one who will either confirm their way of life, or break it. Ngozi felt a sickening knot form in her stomach. Her entire body felt frozen, as though the world around her had stopped moving. How could this be? She thought. How could I be a part of something so dark? No, I won't be part of it, Ngozi muttered, shaking her head. You already are, Nina said, her tone gentle but firm. It's in your blood, child. The trial isn't something that can be avoided. You were born into this, and you must face it. Ngozi stood up, her legs shaky. I can't be part of this. I won't let them control me. Nina's eyes followed her, sadness filling her gaze. The choice isn't yours alone, Ngozi. But remember this: no matter what you decide, you must be ready. The truth will come for you. And when it does, you must decide where you stand. With them, or against them. Ngozi's heart thundered in her chest as she turned and walked away, the weight of Nina's words pressing against her. She had always thought she was an outsider, looking in on a village filled with history and mystery. But now she realized the truth: she was at the center of it all. And the hardest part was yet to come. The trial. The choice. And the truth. As she walked back toward her home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something far greater than herself was unfolding, and she had no idea where it would lead. But one thing was certain: she had no intention of backing down. The stakes were too high. Ngozi couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, the weight of Nina's words pressed against her like an unyielding force. The trial. The choice. The truth. They circled in her mind like restless ghosts, refusing to let her rest. She tossed and turned in her bed, her body aching from the tension that had settled deep into her bones. She had always believed the village to be a simple place, a community where life was lived in the open, where everyone knew each other, where every handshake and smile held meaning. But now, it felt like a labyrinth of secrets, its walls closing in on her, suffocating her with every step she took. And the more she uncovered, the more she realized that she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for everyone in the village who had no idea what was happening around them. With the first light of dawn, she couldn't bear it any longer. The village, with all its familiar paths and faces, had become a maze of uncertainty. The place she had once called home now seemed like a cage, and the only way to escape was to keep moving forward. She had to face whatever this trial was head-on. She had no choice. By midday, Ngozi found herself standing at the edge of the village square, her mind set on her next move. The sun hung high above, casting a golden light that made the whole village look unreal, like a place from a dream, distant and hazy. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. If she was going to face Namdi again, if she was going to learn the truth behind the society and the legacy that had shaped this place, she had to take the first step. She walked straight to the heart of the village, the large, ancient tree that stood at its center. It had been here for as long as anyone could remember, its massive trunk twisted and gnarled like a forgotten relic. The elders often gathered around it, speaking in hushed tones, sharing wisdom passed down through the generations. Ngozi had been there countless times before, but today it felt different. As she approached, she saw that Namdi was already there, standing under the shade of the tree. His posture was relaxed, as though he had been expecting her. A small group of his followers were gathered nearby, their eyes fixed on her with quiet curiosity. She walked up to him, trying to push down the unease rising in her chest. Namdi's gaze met hers with an unsettling calmness. It was as if he knew exactly what she was going to say, knew exactly what was in her heart. "I'm here for the truth, Namdi," Ngozi said, her voice unwavering. "No more games. No more secrets. I need to know what this society is really about and what you want from me." Namdi's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. "You've come far, Ngozi. I knew you would. The truth has a way of calling those who seek it." She crossed her arms, standing tall despite the weight of the situation. "Then tell me, what is this society? What does it want from me?" Namdi's smile faded, and he took a step closer to her. The other villagers, who had been watching quietly, seemed to move a little further back, sensing the tension between the two. "The society, Ngozi, is the foundation of this village," he began, his voice low and measured. "It has existed for centuries, long before any of us were born. It controls everything, the land, the resources, the families. It's a system that has kept order in this village, even through its darkest times. Without it, this place would fall apart. Chaos would reign." Ngozi's eyes narrowed. "And what role do I play in all of this?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air before responding. "You, Ngozi, are the key to ensuring the society's future. The trial you face is not just about knowledge, it's about power. You are the one who can either continue the cycle or break it. The choice will be yours." She clenched her fists, her heart pounding. "So, this whole thing has been planned out from the start? I was never just a villager. I was part of some *test*. Namdi's eyes gleamed with a strange mixture of pride and something darker. "Yes. From the moment you were born, your path was set. The society knew that one day, someone like you would come along. Someone who would have the power to change everything. And now, you stand at the crossroads. I don't want your power," she snapped. "I don't want to be part of your society. I want to live a life free of these chains." Namdi's gaze hardened. "You may not want it, but it's in you. You can't escape it, Ngozi. You were chosen for this. And whether you accept it or not, the trial will come for you. It always does." A hush fell over the group of villagers standing nearby, and for the first time, Ngozi realized that they weren't just observers, they were part of this world too. They were waiting for her to make a choice, just as she had been chosen. They were all waiting for the trial to begin. Her breath came fast as the weight of the situation hit her. Namdi was right about one thing, there was no running from it. The trial had already begun. "What happens if I refuse?" Ngozi asked, her voice tight with defiance. Namdi's face remained impassive. "Refuse, and the society will remove you. It's simple. There's no place for defiance in a world that demands balance. The society has its rules, and if you don't follow them, you will be erased." Her heart clenched. It was the same ultimatum Nina had warned her about. She could not afford to refuse. She had to find a way to navigate this trial, to fight without losing everything she cared about. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. She looked around at the villagers, all of them waiting. And for the first time, she realized that they were not just bystanders, they were all part of a system that had been built on secrets, on lies, on sacrifices. But she wasn't going to be one of them. She wasn't going to let the trial swallow her whole. "I won't be a pawn in your game, Namdi," she said, her voice strong. I'll fight. I'll fight with everything I have. For a brief moment, Namdi's eyes flickered with something, perhaps respect, or perhaps amusement. Very well, he said softly, his lips curling into a thin smile. Let the trial begin. And with those words, the world seemed to shift. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the game had begun, and there was no turning back. The days following Namdi's chilling declaration felt like a slow, suffocating crawl. Each moment seemed to stretch on, as if time itself had been suspended in a tangled web of uncertainty. Ngozi couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in on her, that every move she made was being watched, calculated. She had made her choice, but she wasn't sure what the next step was. She only knew one thing for sure: she couldn't back down. The villagers had begun to act differently around her. Some of them avoided her gaze, others whispered in hushed tones whenever she passed by. It was as though they knew something she didn't, like they could see through her, as if she had become an outsider in the very place she had called home for so long. The weight of their silence pressed down on her, but she refused to let it break her. She spent long hours walking the village, lost in her thoughts, trying to figure out what to do next. Each time she passed the old well in the village square, she could feel the eyes of the society on her, like invisible hands were reaching out to grab her. Her every move was being monitored, she was certain of it. And the truth, she was still so far from it. One evening, when the sun had dipped low, casting a soft pink glow over the village, Ngozi went to the tree by the square, the same place where she had met Namdi. But this time, she wasn't alone. Nina was sitting there, waiting for her, her old, wrinkled face lined with years of secrets and wisdom. You're not alone in this, Nina said as soon as Ngozi sat beside her, her voice steady but filled with a quiet sadness. Ngozi turned to look at her. I know, but it feels like it. I don't even know who to trust anymore. Every person I thought I knew is a part of this game. Nina nodded slowly. It's a heavy burden, child. But you must remember, not all of us are part of the society's plan. Some of us are just trying to survive. We've been caught in the web just as much as you. Survive? How long has this been going on? How many lives have been ruined because of this society asterisk? Too many, Nina said softly. But the thing you must understand is that they don't see it that way. To them, it's about balance. The system must stay in place. There's no room for chaos, for change. And anyone who threatens that, well, you know what happens. Erased, Ngozi whispered, the word tasting bitter in her mouth. Yes, Nina confirmed. But it doesn't have to end like that. There is always another way, if you're willing to fight for it. Ngozi looked up at the tree, its thick branches stretching out into the sky. She felt a flicker of hope, like a tiny ember in the midst of all the darkness that surrounded her. Could she really fight this? Could she truly break the cycle, or was she already too deep into it? You've been given a chance, Ngozi, Nina continued, her voice firm. The society has chosen you, yes, but that doesn't mean they control you. You have the power to change things, to turn the tide. But you need to make the right moves. Carefully. Wisely. The thought of facing Namdi again, of confronting the society directly, sent a shiver through her. But she couldn't let fear dictate her actions. She had already decided, she would fight. She didn't know how, or even if it would work, but she couldn't live knowing that she had done nothing to stop the rot that had taken hold of the village. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Nina turned to her, her wise old eyes filled with understanding. None of us are ever ready, child. But sometimes, life doesn't give us a choice. We just have to step forward, even when the path ahead is dark. The old woman's words hung in the air as they both sat in silence, watching the sun sink lower, casting long shadows over the village. Ngozi felt the weight of her decision pressing on her chest, But there was a strange kind of clarity that followed. This wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't just about the society. It was about the people she cared for, the ones who had no idea what was happening in the shadows. And that was when it hit her. She didn't have to face this alone. If she was going to take down the society, she needed to gather allies. People who weren't part of the system. People who could help her stand against Nnamdi and his followers. The next day, she began reaching out to those she trusted most. Nina was right, there were some who had no part in the society's games. She started with a few of the village's elders who had always shown kindness to her, those who had never turned their backs on her, even when she was an orphan. They were hesitant at first, but as she spoke to them, explaining the darkness that had slowly crept into their lives, they began to see it, too. Slowly, a small group of villagers began to form, united by a common purpose. They shared the same goal to take back the village from the clutches of the society. They didn't have much, but they had hope. And in a place where hope had been all but extinguished, it was enough. It wasn't long before Nnamdi noticed the shift. The whispers grew louder, the undercurrent of defiance stronger. And one evening, as Ngozi stood in the center of the village square, watching the sunset, she saw him approaching. Nnamdi walked toward her with his usual calm demeanor, his eyes locked on hers. "I see you've been busy, Ngozi," he said, his voice low but laced with a thread of something dangerous. "But you should know this will end badly for you." Ngozi stood her ground, the crowd behind her sensing the tension. "I'm done being part of your game, Nnamdi. This village belongs to the people, not to you or your society." Nnamdi smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You think you can change things? You think you can bring down everything we've built? The society is more than just a group of people, Ngozi. It's the very heartbeat of this village." "Then I'll break the heart," she replied, her voice steady. "And you can't stop me." For a moment, there was silence between them, thick with unspoken threats and tension. But Ngozi knew that this was it, the moment everything would change. The trial was no longer just about her. It was about all of them. And whatever happened next, she would make sure that the truth finally came to light. The battle had begun.
The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, as if the village itself was holding its breath. Ngozi stood firm, her back straight, her eyes locked with Nnamdi's. Around her, the small group of villagers who had come together to support her stood tall, their faces a mixture of fear and determination. This was no longer just a confrontation, it was the final stand. Nnamdi didn't flinch. His calm, calculated demeanor never wavered. He seemed to absorb the tension, letting it roll over him like water, but there was a flicker in his eyes, a slight twitch that betrayed his confidence. He had always believed in the unshakable control the society held over the village. He had never imagined anyone, let alone someone like Ngozi, would dare to challenge it. "You think you can undo centuries of order with a handful of villagers, Ngozi?" Nnamdi's voice was as cold as stone, but there was a trace of amusement in it. "The society has roots far deeper than you realize. What you're trying to do is futile." But Ngozi stood resolute. "I'm not trying to undo anything. I'm trying to bring back what this village was meant to be, honest, open, free. You and your society have turned it into something else. You've twisted it into a cage." Nnamdi's lips curved into a smile that felt more like a sneer. "You're delusional. You think the villagers will stand by you? They've been conditioned to obey. They've been taught that there's no life outside of the society's rule. You'll be alone, Ngozi." "No, Nnamdi. You will be alone," she shot back, her voice unwavering. "You've forgotten the people. You've forgotten the ones who built this place, the ones who've lived here, worked here, and bled here. They are the true heart of the village, not you or your society." The words hung in the air for a moment, thick with a power that neither of them could deny. The crowd behind Ngozi began to murmur, their whispers spreading like wildfire. It was clear now that the villagers were not just bystanders in this fight, they were the ones who held the true power. Namdi seemed to sense this shift. His posture stiffened, and for the first time, there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. But it didn't last. With a deep breath, he regained his composure, the mask of control falling back into place. "You've convinced them, haven't you?" he said, his voice suddenly quieter, colder. "But you forget one thing, Ngozi. Power is never truly given. It's taken. And if you think you can walk away from this fight without consequences, you're gravely mistaken." Ngozi took a step forward, her heart pounding, but her resolve stronger than ever. "I'm not afraid of you, Namdi. Not anymore. If we have to fight for this village's future, then that's exactly what we'll do. Together." The villagers, once unsure, now stood taller, their faces resolute. They had always known something wasn't right in their village, but they had never had the courage to speak out. Now, with Ngozi leading them, they found their strength. Namdi's expression darkened, and in that moment, Ngozi knew the true weight of his power. He wasn't just a leader, he was the embodiment of the society itself. And if he was willing to fight to the bitter end to preserve it, then she would have to face him head-on. "You will regret this, Ngozi," he warned, his voice now tinged with a cold, dangerous edge. "The society is older than you. It will survive. And so will I." He turned to the group of followers who had been standing behind him, their eyes flickering with doubt. He gave them a single nod, and in that instant, they moved, circling the group of villagers, eyes narrowed, waiting for any sign of weakness. But Ngozi felt no fear. She knew the battle wasn't one of fists or weapons, it was one of hearts, of courage. As long as the people stood together, they could overcome anything. "You're wrong," she said, her voice carrying through the square. "The society might be old, but it's built on lies. And lies always fall." The sound of her words rippled through the crowd, igniting something in the hearts of the villagers. One by one, they stepped forward, joining her in standing against Namdi and the society. Their collective strength became a powerful force, one that Namdi could no longer ignore. "You think your little rebellion can stand against everything I've built?" Namdi spat, but there was less conviction in his voice now, a crack forming in his armor. "It's not a rebellion, Namdi," Ngozi said. "It's a revolution. The truth has always been stronger than lies. And we're done hiding from it." The village square, once a place of quiet exchanges and simple gatherings, had become the battleground for a future that would either be controlled by fear and secrets, or built on honesty and hope. Ngozi had chosen her side, and with every step she took, the villagers took one alongside her. For the first time, the weight of the society's power felt like it was shifting, cracking under the pressure of something far more powerful, truth and unity. Namdi's gaze flicked over the crowd, searching for any sign of doubt, any sign of retreat. But the villagers held their ground. They were no longer afraid. With a final, venomous glare, Namdi turned and walked away, his followers trailing behind him, uncertain of what the future held. The society, it seemed, was not invincible after all. Ngozi watched them leave, her heart pounding in her chest, but there was a sense of triumph in the air. She had done it. The battle was far from over, but this was the turning point. The village, her home, was no longer shackled by the society's grip. The truth was out, and the villagers had chosen their future. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the square, Ngozi stood surrounded by the people she had fought for. The world ahead of them was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, hope filled the air. And with that hope, came the knowledge that the future could be whatever they decided to make of it. Together. We'd love to know where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now? Drop your answers in the comments.